Welcome to the Left Behind podcast. My name is Zachary Fuller. Right off the bat, I'd like to let you know if you want your ad on this show, email me at fullerforchange@gmail.com. All of that will be in the description. Today we've got a great guest, Pingke Dubignon. She's running for Georgia State Senate District 16. It's going to be a good one. All right, thank you for coming on the podcast, Pingke Dubignon. You're the Democratic candidate running for Georgia State Senate seat 16.
District 16.
District 16, yes. And that includes all of Spalding County, Lamar, Pike, and about half of Fayette, right?
Yes.
Yes. All right. So would you start by telling us a little bit about your background and why you decided to run for this seat?
Well, I'm a single mother. I raised my daughters and my son basically alone. Life has always not been super easy. So it's been a tough road. You know, I had dropped out of high school when I was pregnant with my oldest daughter. And a couple of years later, I went back and got my diploma and continued on. I tried a semester of political science. But again, having to raise my children, I chose to go back to work and I wasn't able to complete school. But along the way, you know, I picked up so many little jewels about life. Like someone asked me, well, you know, do you have a master's? I got a PhD in life, if that helps. You know,
it does.
I'm 60 years old. I'll be 61 in July. I have 10 grandchildren. I have 7 granddaughters and 3 grandsons. And the other reason my main reason for me deciding to run for office, because they're ranging from ages from 21 to 6 months. And, you know, the world that we have now is not one that I want to leave to them. So I know, you know, one person can make a difference. And that's what I've chosen to do here in District 16.
I'm glad to hear someone with a story like yours is running for office, because it reminds me a lot of the people I went to high school with and a lot of my friends, that sort of struggle of life hitting you so hard you can't do the things that a lot of times society expects you to do, but you still keep pushing and you still keep working at it. You know, stories like that are very important to be represented in our government.
When you have children, Zach, they're looking at you. You know, they don't want to hear, mommy don't have food for you. Mommy can't buy shoes for school. Mine didn't want to hear that. You know, they were like, I want that. And mommy had to figure out how to get it, which I did. You know, talking about
bandwidth, huh?
Yeah. Basically, what I said was, you know, when your kids are hungry, they're looking at you. They don't want to hear, mommy don't have it. So you make it happen by any means necessary. And, you know, my family is from the South, but, you know, attempting to run from the oppression of the South, they migrated to the North. So I was raised in New York City, in actuality. Harlem, as a matter of fact. So born in Harlem Hospital. And life in those days, you know, the civil rights struggle was going on. And my mother was very, very interested in that. So I was exposed to it a lot. Mm-hmm. And I kind of understood the plight of the people early. And I remember being a young girl saying to God, to, you know, give me a way to help the people. And I may have been about 13, 14 at that time. I had no idea that it was eventually going to lead me here. But yeah, it led me here.
I'm glad it did. A lot of those battles that, of course, were being fought and during the civil rights movement are still being fought today. You know, a lot of improvements were made, but a lot of things are still going on today. And one of those things, of course, is voting rights. We're having struggles, especially right here, where I live, Spalding County. You know, in Georgia, we've got SB 202 voter suppression bill, and then specifically the incumbent that you're running against helped write HB 769 that specifically targets Spalding County. So can you tell me a little bit of, if you get elected, what are you going to do to secure voting rights and undo the harm that these bills have done?
Well, you know, Zach, I've been a part of that whole process. Last year, I spoke before the commission, I believe it was the county commission, in reference to 769, because I understood what it had done. It had removed the Democrats that were sitting on the election board from the election board. And that was the only way that they could legally do it, without getting the backlash for just removing them. So I've been at the election board meetings. I've spoken to them in reference to this. And what I see is that the Republican Party has come into Spalding County and taking over our election board. And I want to change all of those new rules that the Republicans have put in place in order for them to be able to do what they're doing. I would fight very hard, because voting rights is one of the basic parts of being an American citizen. And I feel that we fought very long and hard for voting rights. And I will do everything in my power, writing legislation to overturn the new laws that have been placed upon Spalding County and other counties, to remove the duly elected Democrats from these seats. So what I will be doing is, you know, taking ideas on how we can overturn all of these rules and new laws that they have put in place, to really stop the Black and brown Georgians from having their voting rights. So there will be legislation. Once I'm elected, there will be legislation.
Yeah, a lot of the provisions in bills like SB 202 are specifically targeted to disproportionately affect Black communities and communities of color in Georgia, and similar bills around the country that do that as well. So it's good to hear that.
Spalding County is being watched right now, Zach. You know that, right?
Yes, I know. A lot of publications are talking about us right now.
Yeah, they're watching. So, which is a great thing for Spalding, I think, especially with us that are running, the Democrats that are running in the 2022 elections. Because my question was, why did they go through all of that? What are they up to? This is my question. Why would you come and take over an election board before a major election unless you have plans on doing something nefarious? Hopefully they don't.
Right.
You know, but for me, see, I think a little differently, you know, because I have seen a whole lot of the world, and I kind of know that if they did that, there's a reason for it. They didn't just come because they want to be in Spalding County. They came with purpose, and we have to watch them. I'm glad that we're on a national stage. I'm glad that they are watching. And honestly and truthfully, what's going to wind up happening is this is going to be a David and Goliath situation because the Republicans really run our legislature.
Mm-hmm.
And what I want to be is the David, and that they can be Goliath and I'll be David, and we gonna
Mm-hmm.
fight.
Yeah. You got to
Simple.
take them down. And a big part of that fight for voting rights in Georgia is, of course, electing Stacey Abrams to the governorship, because she's fought for over a decade for voting rights. How important do you think it is for the legislator to turn blue and give her more of a majority? How important is that to actually accomplishing anything, like in a competitive seat like the one you're running in?
Well, it's extremely important, Zachary, because first of all, she would be in a constant battle in the legislature if she didn't have people there fighting for her. The Republicans are not going to fight for her. They're going to do everything in their power if she is elected to stop anything that she attempts to do, like they did with President Obama.
Yep.
And, like they still do with Biden.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so she's going to need all the support she can get. So we need to turn these counties, in our little Spalding County. It's not on anybody's purview unless you live in this district. You understand what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
um, just like a lot of the other counties in the rural South, we get ignored a lot. We get ignored a lot
Mm-hmm.
because we're not the major cities, we're not the urban areas, and those are the areas that they concentrate more on. Um, I need to bring, and all of us that are running for these state Senate seats and these congressional seats, representative seats, we have to stand firm together um, to get what we need. And what we need are people in these seats that want to help the people. And Stacey is number one. She's been out there fighting for a long time for voting rights, and she's given us a platform, a real platform.
Mm-hmm.
Something that we can see. It's not just talk. We see it happening all across the country. So I believe it's very important that she has as many Democrats as she can get in the state Senate and the state representative seats. That's the only way she's going to get anything done.
Yeah, I definitely agree, especially since around the country in states that have Republican majority state legislators, we're seeing a lot of really targeted, horrible bills right now. And some of those are in Georgia. Like they're trying to get passed right now a ban for transgender people in schools and in other areas playing sports. And there's a lot of attacks on transgender care in general, and other attacks allowing businesses to discriminate against LGBTQIA plus people in general. So if you're elected as a senator, what are you going to do, even if Democrats are still the minority in the state legislature? What are you going to do to protect LGBTQIA plus people from these bills that they're trying to pass?
Well, first of all, let it be known that my sister is LGBTQ, my oldest sister. And loving her like I do, I believe that she has all the rights that any one of us have, regardless of what her choice of her gender is. What I would do is I would call together a committee of the LGBTQ community in Georgia and find out what it is they need. You know, I understand a lot of the schools and things like that. They are very biased to LGBTQ youth. And just because they don't identify in the way that the world thinks that they should, doesn't mean that they're not human and that they don't have rights. I've been watching and I've seen some changes, but not the major ones, the ones that would affect us here in our little community. Like I said, I have all the respect and love for the LGBTQ community because, as I said, my family, you know, my sister. As far as what laws, I mean, I know that the LGBTQ community is ostracized a lot, but all I'm saying, Zach, is regardless, just like with a person's color, that shouldn't determine whether they have rights. Because they're human beings and they live here in America, they automatically have rights. Now, as I said earlier, you cannot take a person's rights away because they choose to identify in another way than you think they should. So as I said, I'm going to pull together the community and see what it is you guys, what's necessary for them. What do they need? Especially here in Georgia. Now, I understand on the federal and the larger level that some things are being done, but I'd like to learn a little bit more about that community here.
Okay, I think that's a good idea. But you brought up in school some of the discrimination, and that reminds me of a law that was passed in the Georgia legislature last year. That was an anti-CRT law that allowed teachers to be fired if they talk about certain racial issues in the classroom. Now, yeah, I've asked some of the teachers that I know personally, and they say that it doesn't really affect them that much because it's only if they get caught, you know? And so they're still going to do the right thing and it probably won't affect them. But it's bills like that that states are trying to do for queer people in school, like the Don't Say Gay bill in Florida that they're trying to get passed, where it's like, even if you have gay parents or something, you're not allowed to talk about that at all in school. It's things like that that are kind of vague in the wording that the GOP is trying to pass to set a precedent of discrimination and make it harder for people to, you know, have equal rights, and basically removing protections for discrimination.
Well, I mean, if you know anything about the history of our country, that has been a part of the vein that runs through it is discrimination. I can't say for certain that I understand what someone who is LGBTQ goes through because I have never experienced it on that level. But then when you think about discrimination as a whole, I've experienced it. So I can understand from that perspective. And it's not something that really should be even a part of our country. Because what a person identifies as and what they want to do in their bedroom is their business. Is what they do in society when they're out here dealing with humanity. What they do then is what they should be judged on.
Right. Even though some lawmakers are trying to make it to where you can't do things in society, like the bathroom bills against trans people and things like that. And the bill that was passed in Tennessee last year that made it to where businesses had to identify if they would even serve trans people.
What?
Yeah. And so that specific type of bill hasn't been proposed in Georgia yet, but other discriminatory bills have been, like the sports ban in school. And so that's why I wanted to hammer this issue home. But another very important issue that I want to get your thoughts on is reproductive rights and protecting Planned Parenthood, because Roe v. Wade has been gutted by the conservative Supreme Court, and the Women's Health Protection Act just failed in Congress the 28th of February. Mm-hmm. So now it's basically up to the state governments to decide how to protect women and some trans people for contraceptives and abortion rights. So what are your thoughts and plans to protect people who need abortion?
Well, as a woman, I'm going to protect my rights. So, you know, all of the women come along with that. What I basically see, Zach, I'm going to be the voice of reason in the state Senate, not just as a minority, Black woman, but as a woman. There needs to be more women in the state Senate, because if not, our voices won't be heard. And as one of those women that are going to the state Senate, I'm kicking butts and taking names. I mean, I'm serious. I'm not going up there to play pity pat. I'm going up there to make a difference, you know, for everybody, for transgender, LGBTQ, people of color, Mexican, everybody that is being kicked to the curb and sort of like they don't want our face to be shown in as a part of the United States, because we all are. Regardless of your color, or as I said, your choices, you're still an American citizen, and all of those rights that are allotted to American citizens belong to you as well. So, you know, as far as women's reproductive rights and things of that nature, I know that there's need for protections. That I do understand. But then again, I do not want it to be mistaken as contraceptive. So as far as abortion rights are concerned, yes, as a woman, you have the right to do what you want with your body. But you don't have a right to use state funds if you continue to have babies that you don't want. You understand what I'm saying, Zachary?
When I say that, could you be more specific on what you mean?
When I say that, I heard someone say, well, you know, abortion is not good anyway, but some of these women use it like contraceptive. So you get pregnant this year, you go have an abortion. You get pregnant next year, you go have an abortion, instead of being responsible and protecting yourself. So under those kind of circumstances, Zach, yeah, I mean, you can be a little wiser than that. But if in situations like rape, and different stuff like that, yes, I do believe that a woman has a right to choose whether she wants to carry a baby or not under those circumstances. But I've seen too many women, and I come from the ghetto, the hood, as we would call it. And I know a lot of women that, you know, they just use it because they can. So in a lot of ways, I understand. And then in a lot of ways, as a woman, I understand you wanting to also have the choice.
Okay, so I would think to fight that type of situation, you would want more like better sex education and more access to actual contraceptives. And
Yes.
one thing that certain bills are trying to do is
Is
jack up
removed.
the prices and make it harder to access contraceptives, especially for minors to access contraceptives. And of course, sex education is not mandatory in schools either, not in Georgia. So
When I grew up,
that's
growing up in New York, it was a part of our curriculum. We had sex ed, and it wasn't called that, but that's what it was
yeah.
basically. They taught you about the parts of the body and you know all of those type of things. But what I think now is our children are being exposed to a whole lot of things now with the internet and the TVs, and they're seeing things. And I think that to put the knowledge, to give them the knowledge where they'll be able to make the correct decisions is very important. Because, you know, you see all the naked girls all over the place and the videos and all of that stuff. And I was young once, long time ago, but I was young once. And I do remember, you know, your hormones be flying, and a lot of times if you haven't been made aware of what's going on, you don't know. And then, you know, um somebody in the street will give you information, but if you're not getting the correct information, so I think that it should be an option. It should be an option, because there are going to be parents that say, "Oh no, I don't want my kids to learn that." But are you teaching it at home? Because if you're not teaching it at home, how are they going to learn it?
So are you saying you think in Georgia that it should completely be optional for the parents, or that it should be optional for private schools but mandatory in public schools? Like, what's your stance
I
on sex
think that it
education in
should
that
be,
case?
as a parent and a grandparent, I think that it should be optional for a parent, because you may not be able to do it. You know, you may not be able to sit down with your daughter or son and tell them the birds and the bees, as my mother and them called it back in the days. So you may not have that in you. You may not know how to go about doing that. So if the school is offering you that option, then you can make the decision that's right for you and your family. Now, if it's being pushed down kids' throats, I don't know that I want my 11-year-old granddaughter really to have a lot of the information that she may be a little too young for right now. So, although, you know, her mother, her father, you know, we talk to her because she is growing up, but I don't quite want her to have access to contraceptives and all that stuff as of yet, because that what that does is it gives you the okay in kids' minds, in their minds. Oh, they're teaching me this, so they know I'm gonna do it, so I can go ahead and do it.
Hmm.
That's how they think.
Uh, in some cases, you're right, but generally, studies show that access to contraceptives do just protect kids in general. It doesn't really increase the amount that they go and have sex.
Can I ask you, what age do you think is appropriate?
Um, I mean, personally, I don't think you should really be having sex until you're a late teenager, if that. But that's all up to individuals. It's not about what people think is the right time to do that. It's about people's safety. And unfortunately, some younger teenagers and even children decide to have sex. And when they do, they can get hurt. They can contract an STD, or they can have a baby that they are way too young to have and didn't want. And they need the proper tools and education to be able to deal with that situation and stay safe, even
So
though they shouldn't have been doing it in the first place. You understand what I'm
when I
saying?
asked the question, what age did you think was appropriate? the question I was asking, what age do you think is appropriate for it to be taught in school?
Oh, I would say starting in high school. I would say your freshman year of high school, you should be taught
All right.
explicit sex education.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. I believe that. Um,
Sorry, I
because
misunderstood the question.
yeah, no. Um, I believe that. That's why I was saying I don't think that I want my 11-year-old daughter, granddaughter, being taught those things yet. Those things that, like she has a dad that talks to her. She has a grandmother that talks to her. She has a mom that talks to her. We haven't gotten to the specific explicits yet because of her age.
Right.
But by the time she gets to, like you said, her freshman year in high school, she'll have some knowledge from the knowledge that we've given her. But then all that will do in sex education classes will be to further her knowledge,
Right.
give her more information. So yes, I think that about high school, yes, definitely, because they're gonna do what they want to do. Is better that they be protected. But that, too young, no, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with it starting at, young ages. No.
All right. Well, I want to move on to healthcare more broadly now because there's a lot of Democrats running in Georgia right now that are running on lowering drug prices. And there have been calls to expand Medicare and Medicaid in Georgia specifically, as well as on a federal level for a while now. So I wanted to know your perspective on that and what your ideas are if you're elected to lower drug prices or expand healthcare for Georgians.
Well, in actuality, first of all, our governor needs to stop being careless, because that's what it is. If the federal government, I believe it's $3.5 billion that was put to the side for Georgia itself, and our governor continues to refuse it. That kind of money would at least possibly 500,000 to 1,000,000 more Georgians would be covered.
Are you talking about from the American Rescue Plan?
I'm talking from the ACA.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Um, the actual Medicaid, Medicare expansion. He has been turning away the money, and he says that it would cost too much to, further it. And that doesn't make any sense to me, because you have people here that are sick, that don't have any kind of insurance, no kind of medical insurance. They have to go to the emergency rooms. Then anything that they do within those emergency rooms, it costs money. And if they don't have coverage, then that means that the state itself is losing money, because we're taking care of people who have gotten sick because they didn't have any preventive care. Because if they don't have any kind of insurance, I mean, I experienced it myself with my daughter, who had gotten into a car accident. So she lost her job. The job, her medical insurance she had through her job. Once they terminated her services, she lost her medical. She found out not only was she injured, because she was injured, like she bad back and all of that type of stuff. She's healing, but she found out she was pregnant. And she needed to be able to go to the doctor, and she had no medical insurance. Do you know it took them 4 months to give her Medicaid, and she was pregnant? It took them 4 months to give her the Medicaid. Not only did it take them 4 months to give it to her, but when she did get a plan, it was a plan that nobody in this area accepted. So she had to go an hour away to get a doctor that accepted the health plan that they gave her.
Mm-hmm.
Why shouldn't she have been able to go to a doctor in her community? Here's a woman with back injuries and pregnant and got to drive or have somebody drive her an hour to the doctor and an hour home. So I have some issues with the healthcare system here. I have some issues with, there are a couple of things that, okay, once we accept the Medicare expansion, then we can help to build up some of these hospitals as well. Because a lot in our communities, these hospitals are giving subpar, if that, service to the people.
Right.
And a lot of the things that I talk about, I have experienced. I've seen it for myself. And I'm not too happy about it. Being rushed from my home in an ambulance and just dropped in the emergency room. Just dropped there.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, sat there. And when they took me from my home, I had on a nightgown. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And they took me, the ambulance took me and dropped me in the waiting area of the emergency room. I was freezing. I was cold. I had to keep asking, like, when are you guys going to see me? And it was like, I was not happy with the service that I received. And it was hours. I had to call somebody and ask them to come and get me. I didn't want to stay there no more. I was hungry. I was cold. And they was acting like I wasn't there. And what kind of healthcare system is that? I'm sure I'm not the only one.
Definitely not. Georgia has one of the lowest rates of covered people, like insurance coverage for healthcare. Georgia is one of the bottom of a percentage of the population that is covered. And because of that, of course, a lot of people suffer. And I think personally, I believe healthcare should be a human right. But not only that, but a lot of these hospitals and medical clinics are underfunded. And part of that is because people don't have coverage. So one, people don't go to the doctor as often as they should, which causes a lot of premature death and a lot of like comorbidities and stuff. But also it prevents the doctor's offices from making enough money as well. And then people will go when they have to, and sometimes they can't pay it. Where if you had a better healthcare system, especially a public option, you could, like a better public option than what we have, because it is very broken and very expensive to be on the public healthcare right now. These hospitals would be better funded from people going there more often and using that insurance money.
Mm-hmm.
As well as people being safer, living longer, and being in better health, like having better health in general.
I had done a little bit of research, because I just wanted to know how many people in Georgia had died because they didn't have health care coverage. And it's a high number. And the reason being because when you make a person have to choose between getting their medication that they need to live and paying their bills, the roof that they need over their head, they're going to pay their bills first. Mm-hmm. So what's been happening is people are choosing not to take certain care because they can't afford it, which is causing deaths. People are not getting the correct amounts of their medication because, let's say, they can't afford to purchase a 30-day supply of medication, but they have to take it twice a day. And instead of taking it twice a day, they take it once a day. Mm-hmm. So I believe that a healthy Georgia is a strong Georgia. I believe that a strong Georgia is a healthy Georgia. So if we say that, we want our people to have the best, besides roofs over their head and food in their stomach, they need medical insurance. That's a need. And not only is it a need, it's a right. Other countries can do it. Why can't we?
Yeah. And one thing I want to get your specific answer on involving healthcare is insulin prices, because there's actually a bill that our Senator Raphael Warnock introduced that would cap it at $35, whereas right now people are paying nearly $400 for a bottle of insulin. Now, that's likely to fail in the federal House and the federal Senate. But in Georgia, if possible, if Stacey Abrams is elected and somehow there's a Democratic majority or a way to work with Republicans to pass it, would you do a law specifically in Georgia to cap the prices of insulin?
Yeah. Insulin and a whole lot of other medications. But insulin being the one you're speaking of, yes, most definitely. Because if a person's on insulin, they need that to live.
Yes.
So if I gotta pay $400-$500 for it, Zachary, I don't know, because a lot of people that are, a lot of our older population, they're already living on a limited budget.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're talking about taking $500 of that for medication that they need to live. Something's not going to get done.
Right.
You understand? So we have to start thinking about, it's not so much about Big Pharma now. Not for me anyway. It's for humanity.
Right.
It's all about humanity. So yeah, I will be fighting as hard as I can, because I know that I'm not going to be able to do it alone. Once, if, and when I am elected, we're going to need a whole bunch of me's in order to fight these Republicans that they don't care about anybody except for the wealthy. Right. And their special interests. And my special interest is the people. I said to somebody, I don't want to be a politician. And the person said to me, don't ever let me hear you say that again. But I'm going to say it again. I don't want to be a politician. I want to be a public servant, as Raphael Warnock says. I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to be a politician. I want to serve the people that are going to put me in this office, as we all should be. The person that's currently sitting in the seat that I am running for, he has no clue. And most of the people, he have no clue as to who he is. Mm-hmm. Because I have been asking a lot of people, okay, do you know who your state senator is? And people are like, no. And I'm like, are you serious? You don't know? No. So that means that they haven't seen him. Mm-hmm. He's not coming to the community. He's not coming to the meetings, the city commission or the county commission, or, stepping up in the election board. He's not doing any of that. The only time that he deals with Spalding County is when he wants to write a bill to hurt people.
Which is what he did.
Yes, every time. Like, somebody sent me a thing and said, what is he doing? Why is he down there fighting for Buckhead to become annexed from Atlanta when he got work that he needs to be doing in Spalding? Yeah. You understand? And I said, well, I don't know, because I can't read the man's mind. But it tells you a little bit about his concern for his district. And I think the only thing that he's concerned about are the wealthy people and the special interests. Mm-hmm. Regular people like me, we don't come across his mind unless he's trying to do something to take away our voting rights or something else. Yeah.
And this is a good chance to bring it more local. So one thing that a lot of Democrats in Georgia are also running on is expanding public transportation. And that's something that has been cut a lot in the past decades in Spalding County. And of course, Lamar and Pike, it didn't really exist that much. So what are your plans to expand public transportation in Georgia, of course, but how is that going to benefit your district specifically?
Well, in the economic development that would be needed for Spalding County, I believe that public transportation is needed because people need to be able to get to work. People need to be able to get home. Everybody doesn't have a license and everybody doesn't have a car. And as I said, the economic development part, we're going to build up Spalding. We're going to add some things here which would give the people an upper hand, like better jobs and, you know, different kind of businesses and things that would turn Spalding into a vibrant community. But see, that's not what they want. See, the issue with transportation into places like Spalding is they know with transportation comes people that they consider unwanted. So that's why they fight so hard to keep public transportation out of Spalding, because then people that regularly couldn't get here would be able to easily. Mm-hmm. And they don't want that. Like we have, you know, 1941 and Taylor and all those places, you know, there are jobs and things like that. But what if you have to go to McDonough to work? Mm-hmm. Shouldn't there be a easy way for you to get there rather than having to, especially if you don't drive or you don't have a car, instead of having to ask someone mm-hmm. to, because that a lot of times is what stops people from getting to work.
And a lot of people who live in Spalding County work in other counties because there's a lack of jobs here.
Yes, that's what I was talking about as far as economic development and kind of building this area up to where it's going to be vibrant and you know, people are going to want to be here. Because I had a young man say to me, as soon as I graduate out of high school, I'm leaving. And I said, what you mean you're leaving? He said, ain't nothing here. And it's not. Yeah, and they've kept it that way for a reason. So as far as public transportation, of course, we need public transportation because, as I said, most people that live here do not work in Spalding. And a lot of them don't have licenses and a lot of them don't have cars because you're talking about, I'm not going to say poor people because they might be poor financially, but they're big in spirit. So, you know, but a lot of people don't have money to buy a car, but they can get $2, $3 to get on a bus.
Right. Can you be specific with any things you want to do, like expanding rail or bringing a bus route here, or like any specifics on public transportation?
Well, I look at, there's a train track that runs through here constantly. And I think that could be used and connected to different parts of the state where people would be able to, I mean, if we had a regular, like MARTA out here, I think that those train tracks could be used for a train system. And when you look, 1941, 16, Taylor, those are some of the main arteries of Spalding and getting out of Spalding. So if a bus could be connected from the court down there on, I think that's Terra Boulevard, that's as far as buses coming from the other direction go. They don't come this far.
Yeah. There's something like Lovejoy.
Yeah. Um, Connecting from there into Spalding and making the branch. The people of Spalding deserve a better way of life. And as their state senator, that would be my fight, period. If it means, trains, then we have to figure out how we're going to do that. If it means buses, we're going to have to figure out how to do that. There has to be a way. And I know the only reason that they haven't allowed it thus far is because they don't want those people coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, that's what it is.
Yeah, there's big money here, and they want to make sure they stay the people in charge and they have control of what type of community we have.
But I don't understand how there's so much big money here. It doesn't show in the community.
Well, exactly. Isn't put into the community. It's just a couple of people who have it and control Spalding County.
No, it's not being put into the community. It's impossible. If you look around at people have a tendency to act. People that are born into certain environments reflect that environment.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times. And, I remember the first time I came to this side of, I'll say Griffin. Once, when I first came out here, all I saw was the side over there by Walmart and, all the nice restaurants and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, it's nice out here. And then a friend of mine said, I need you to ride with me over here. And when she came across, I was like, oh my God. I said, wait a minute. People still live like this? And she was like, what you mean? And I'm like, remember, I'm from New York. So I'm looking around and I'm saying, well, dang, they don't take care of their houses, there's a lot of blight and, there's no brightness. There's no energy to Griffin. And I'm like, I remember, like looking around and saying, oh no, we got to do something about this. Because you know what, if you brighten this area up, you fix up, like I wanted to get involved with Habitat for Humanity because I was going to try to get them to come out into this community and help to fix and brighten up the environment and make it, because if I walk out my door and I'm looking around and everything looks beautiful and I feel good about my community, I feel good about my neighborhood, that's a whole different feeling. Mm-hmm. Than coming out and looking around and seeing garbage and everything's all dull and dark. And you're like, this is my life. Mm-hmm. That's why most people run and they leave.
That's right. And in Griffin specifically, a lot of the money funnels to the top. Like you said, on the west side, you've got all those businesses and they're owned by a lot of the same people. All that.
Yes, they are.
People from outside of the community and in the community come to that part of town, spend all their money, and the money goes to the top. And then you see the rest of the community, like the north side and over in East Griffin. Yeah. And there's no money put in there.
No, there's none. And then you wonder why the community, they don't care because we don't. They don't care because the people that are supposed to be in charge of looking after and making things better for them, all they're concerned about is looking after and making things better for themselves. Mm-hmm. And it's not about the people. And that has got to be the major part. Anyone who is running for office now, it's got to be about the people. If it's not about the people, then you're just a politician.
Right. One thing that's affecting a lot of people right now, of course, is job security, because wages have stagnated. Unions are almost non-existent nowadays. So do you have any ideas or plans of how to bring jobs to Georgia and explicitly how to get people higher wages, better job security? And do you support and would you help in any way unionization efforts in different industries?
Well, yes, I do support unions in different, and really honestly and truthfully, I think every should have a union.
I agree.
Because the union is the go-between between the employee and the employer. the rules that the union sets, if the employer doesn't abide by them, they have to deal with the union. So yes, I think unions should be in every industry. And I would support the unions. Um, as far as jobs, how would I do that? Well, like I was telling someone, I've seen a couple of great big warehouses and mills and stuff that are basically closed, or they look like they're closed. They're not being used. They're just taking up a bunch of space in these communities that have been redlined. Um, and what I'm thinking is if we could get some of those buildings and offer breaks, tax breaks, and different things to different companies, that we could bring a whole different jobs. See, because this is my idea. Like, having been there's this place in Baltimore that anytime I go to Maryland, I love going there. It's called Lexington Mall. And what Lexington Mall is a big, great big open space, right? You have the fresh meat vendors, you have the fresh fish vendors, you have fresh vegetables, you have restaurants, you have delis, you have little clothing stores, and all of this in this one place. And what it becomes is like a community gathering. Like, people come, they do their shopping, they meet there, they talk, they eat there. But in some of these buildings, what I've seen is it could be used for something like that. And then businesses, community, like, I want to put up a life center here. And when I say a life center, I mean someplace for people to go to learn things besides, like, our community centers. They have a tendency to direct all of their energies towards basketball, football, things of that nature. Kids nowadays not interested in that so much. They're interested in technology. They are interested in creating music, engineering. Why don't we have a hub of things like that within our community? And what happens is people will come. Like they say, you build it, they will come. People will come, but a lot of people are scared of this area for some reason.
Yeah.
And it's because it hasn't been developed.
I'm really glad you're saying all that, because we've sort of in this area, like all of your district, there's been created sort of an antisocial society because there's a lack of public spaces. You go anywhere in Spalding, Pike, Lamar, and even, most of Fayette, you're not going to see places for people to gather in public unless it's like a park, and parks are nice and important, but you need places that people are going to want to be and have something to do, but not as individuals, something you can do as a group. Community. Exactly. Yes. And that's something we don't have.
No, we do not. And like, when I say life center, I mean, a lot of young women are having children, but they don't know how to be mothers. A lot of young men are making babies, but they don't know how to be fathers. And we need, as the elder generation, to give them some guidance. Having classes like that, parenting classes, cooking classes, because a lot of these young women don't know nothing about cooking. They feed the kids McDonald's all day because they don't know. Mm-hmm. So you can't fault them for what they don't know. We have to teach them. So when you put up spaces like that where, they're learning science, they're learning technology, they're learning how to engineer a music session. When they learn, those are the things that our kids are interested in. When they're learning fashion design, these are things that if we had these kind of programs out here, not only would it attract people to Spalding, but the people that are here would stay.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying? Because then they have something to look forward to, like the market that I'm talking about. Every time I ride past that building, I see it and I'm like, what's going on with this? And they tell me something about that the mills, the dirt under the mills is contaminated, and the county does, or the state don't want to spend the money to decontaminate the dirt and all of that. So y'all just gonna let it sit there. It's a blight on the community.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of cleaning it up, fixing the inside up. You have classes in there, you have offices in there. On the other side, you got the market, and then you look and the whole community is vibrant and is being built up. And you look around and people are moving in. You give tax breaks to different companies because we got more warehouses and stuff out here than we have real businesses. And I haven't really noticed. There are a few businesses with people of color but most of the stuff here is owned by one or two families.
Yeah.
You understand? Mm-hmm. So we need to give people, you got to give them some skin in the game.
Mm-hmm. It's only very recently that I've noticed small businesses, especially businesses owned by people of color in Griffin and Spalding County, only very recently. And it's just a couple of them.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it's been kept this way, Zach, on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to be people like you and I and all those that are fighting for the people of these counties. That's the only way we're going to make a difference, because the people that are sitting in the positions of power, first of all, they want to keep their power. They're going to do anything they can to keep their power.
Mm-hmm.
And see, what they know is the people of these counties, especially in these local, because I consider the state senate a local election. You understand what I'm saying? Because it's with the state. And it's part of, when I tell people all the time about the only way that you can make changes in your community for you and your family that are going to affect you directly are through your local elections. Now, the federal elections, that stuff trickles down to us eventually. But the ones that make a difference is your DA, your city council, your county, your city commissioners, your county commissioners, your election board. These are the elections that really make a difference for you and your family, are those down ballot elections. And a lot of the times the Republicans have been winning on default, because our people don't come out on these type of elections. So, because like I said, they don't have no skin in the game. Mm-hmm. It's like, who am I going to vote for? Why even bother?
Right.
So what I am attempting to do is I'm going to give somebody to vote for. Somebody will get up there and fight for them. I might not fight the same way everybody else does, but I fight still. You understand? Because I'm not, my kids tell me all the time, I have no filter. And they're like, Mommy, I don't know what kind of, I can see you now having the whole Senate riled up.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're going to say what you feel. Like. Yeah, you're going to say what you feel, whether they like it or not. And you're going to make a lot of people angry.
That's necessary, though.
Yes. So I'm standing strong. I'm standing for the people of Spalding, Pike, Lamar, and Fayette. I'm also getting ready to try to start the Spalding Democratic Women's Committee.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah, because see, we need some women making some decisions, because the men that are making them, they're not making them for us. They're not making them for the people. They're making them for themselves, their special interests. And my special interest is 7 little girls and 3 little boys. That's what my special interests are. I want to make sure that they have a chance.
That's a great mindset to have to go into public service. All right, we're running a little long here. How much more time do you have?
Well, Zach, they told me I was all yours.
Okay, I mean, because I got a couple more things to talk to you about. I just didn't want to keep you all night if you had somewhere to be.
No, I'm fine. I'm fine.
Okay, well, of course, the most important thing in any election right now for our future is dealing with the climate crisis. Because if we don't, we won't have a planet to live on anymore. So, how can Georgia help fight the climate crisis that's going on right now?
Well, um, we first of all need to look at our carbon footprint. Um, we do have a lot of industry here. And I think that what we put out into the atmosphere is, it not only affects global warming situation, but it affects the people in these communities.
Mm-hmm.
So what I would look at doing is to regulate it, and not just regulate it to the point where, you give industry, first of all, a certain amount of time to maybe change their system to solar, different ways, so that our carbon footprint is not as large as it is. Because I think that if every state took the time to pay their carbon footprint and a little bit more attention, if every state did that individually, then we would look and we would see a change. But, with industry being special interests to a lot of people, they would prefer to let the industry come, get the money, but they don't pay attention to the damage that's being done. And as I said, I would write legislation to more regulate industry, because like I said, there's a bunch of it here. And the carbon footprint that we as a state are putting out into the atmosphere.
Mm-hmm. That's very important. But one thing a lot of people are afraid of is they think that if we take certain steps to fight the climate crisis, it's going to hurt industry, hurt the economy, and lose jobs. Now, I think, and this is based off a lot of studies and a lot of experts saying this, that it's the opposite. It would create jobs and fuel industry, and make us have a more sustainable economy. Is there any points on that you want to touch on to sort of ease some people who are more on the fence or don't understand the intricacies of it, sort of make them feel better about moving to a more green economy?
Well, first of all, a more green economy would mean a healthier state. That's first. Second, look, if I was to show you right now, I actually separate my garbage. I have my the things that go in the regular garbage, and then I have the one that they will take and they will remake different things out of it. All of the little things like that, they make a difference. And I think that each of us should be held to a higher position when it comes to how we deal with the environment. Because believe me, I go through my garbage and I take the plastic out and the glass out and all of that. And that's because I feel responsible to make sure that any little thing I can do, whatever little part I can play, makes a difference. And if all of us started to feel that way, if we all thought that way, then we would see that regulating industry as far as, what their carbon footprint is and things of that nature, and then allowing and helping industry to switch over to more sustainable ways would benefit not just industry, it would benefit the state, and it would benefit the people.
Yeah,
So, I mean, I don't see where there's where do you lose? What's the
exactly.
loss in?
And industry regulation is the most important part of it because while separating your garbage is good, and I think more people should do it, statistically, about 100 companies in the world make about 80% of the carbon impact on the world. So what is actually going to affect climate change is regulating these industries, because separating your garbage is just going to make your community a little cleaner. When it comes to the large scale, it doesn't really do very much. It's these big companies that are polluting so much.
Yeah. And like I said, the special interests, they have their people that, that they lobby different congressmen and different senators and stuff like that to get things done the way that they want them to be done. And the money always seems to outweigh the will of the people. You know what I mean? Because I know that we all want to be healthier, Zach. I know that, when we breathe in the air, we want to be certain that what we're breathing in is not going to kill us.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? So I believe with all my heart that regulating industry is important. And making sure that the people who are the oversight of these committees, are doing their job. Because I know that there are laws in different places that are not being any attention being paid to them because the people in power don't want the attention paid to them because they get money for letting it, like when our ex-president called himself dismantling the EPA, I was like, what? Why would you do that? But I understand his mindset because most of his friends are in the industry.
Yeah.
You get where I'm coming from? So no, he doesn't want it regulated. But we need to definitely need to regulate industry. I have grandchildren that have breathing issues, asthma, and different stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can avoid making our kids sick, then I don't think anybody should have a problem with that, because I'm sure my grandchildren are not the only ones having breathing problems. A lot of times people don't know that that's what it is, though. It's the environment.
That's exactly right. And you brought up redlining earlier. Things like that still affect communities today. And when it comes to environmental damage, it is the poorer communities that are disproportionately people of color as well have the worst of it. They're put specifically in these areas that get the overcast of smog and the water pollution and all of these different things. They're the people hit the hardest, is the poorer communities, because unfortunately, a lot of legislators, especially on a local level, structure the things that way in a racist way, an environmentally racist way, and against lower income people in general, not just on a racial
That's what
level.
I was getting ready to say, Zach, because it's not just people of color.
It's all lower income people.
Poor people, low income individuals, and they come in all shapes, sizes, and colors. So, what I wish is that people would stop seeing color and political party and just see each other as human beings. And I think that, you know, finding the love in that will make us make right decisions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I this the decisions that I will make as a state legislator will always be people driven, not special interest driven.
Well, one of the biggest special interest groups is, of course, police unions. And so I'd like to know your feelings and if you have any plans for structural police reform or how to improve public safety in general.
Well, I look at it like this. The police are supposed to protect and serve. That's their purpose, or the purpose that we were told that they have. And some, they do. They get up every day and they put on their uniforms and they come out here with only the best intentions to protect and serve. But then you have those who have other intentions. And what I think has to happen first of all is that all police officers, you know, 6 a day, a cosmetologist, a hairdresser trains longer than somebody trains to become a police officer. And I'm like, well, you know, yeah, hairdressers, they mess with some chemicals, but police officers play with guns.
Yeah.
Chemicals might burn your hair out, but a police officer that, you know, is not right up here, he can kill you. So I think that they need to have longer trainings. I think that there needs to be a deeper dive into the mentality of police officers, what they believe and how they feel about different things. I think that police officers should live in the communities that they police.
Yes.
The reason I say that is because if you watch little Jimmy's mama pregnant with him, you and your kids and little Jimmy played outside. Little Jimmy gets a little older. You think twice before you shoot him. If you see him doing something, you might grab him by his ear and say, boy, come here, let me take you home. Because you're vested. And what's happening is they're putting police officers into communities that they don't understand. They're putting police officers into communities that don't trust them.
Mm-hmm.
Because the trust hasn't been built.
Mm-hmm.
But if I know, see, if Officer Jones lives 4 houses down and the whole community knows it, I don't think nobody's going to try to break into my house. Because they know Officer Jones is down there and all I got to do is call him. Mm-hmm. And he's going to come. So when you put police into communities that they don't understand, there's always going to be a conflict. When you put them in the communities with people that don't trust them, there's always going to be a conflict. And especially when you put police into communities, especially, and I'm going to say it, racist police officers, into communities of people of color. You cannot do that. Mm-hmm. So therefore, I believe that they need to not only train them longer, they need to have constant mental, you know, like, what are you thinking? How are you feeling? And what do you think about this? And, you know, so that you know, and you're not going to put that type of police officer out on the street.
Yeah. I heard from a community activist that lives in the police zone of Atlanta that Rayshard Brooks got murdered in. Mm-hmm. And one of the big issues that he said was the police officers in that zone actually work with the community and don't have any issues like they had with Rayshard Brooks. It's police officers in other zones that come and patrol in their zone that aren't a part of the community that do the killing.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what he said. And so he was calling for in Atlanta more regulated patrol routes to where you stay in your zone, you stay in your community. And that's something that on a statewide level, I think would be very effective to actually make sure police officers stay in their community and don't just go into what could be a warrior mentality. If I'm going into a battlefield, I don't know anyone, everyone's an enemy. If you're in your community, it's your community. These are your people, everyone.
Officer friendly.
You care about.
That's what we used to call them in New York, officer friendly. You know what I mean? Because they come through the neighborhood and they knew your mother. You understand? And they knew who your family was and all of those things. And it wasn't as much killings and in the communities as it has been within the past 30 years. Because the communities knew officer friendly, and officer friendly daggone knew everybody in the community. So, you know, I think that we need to kind of get back to that where we're not enemies. The community and the police are not enemies, and we're working together to protect and serve.
And I also completely agree with your idea of better vetting and more constant vetting of police officers, because over the past couple of decades, and this is something that agencies like the FBI report about, white supremacist groups and other extremist groups have been intentionally getting jobs in police departments to push their agenda, their racist, extremist agendas. So we need to make sure that these type of people aren't allowed to be police officers.
Right. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is by vetting them mentally. You know, because there's some things you can hide, Zach, and there's some things you just can't hide. You know, so if I know that you have these tendencies, that I can't allow you into the police force. I know that another thing that needs to happen is when people are saying, oh, defund the police, that's not what they're saying. They're not saying to remove the police department. Basically, what they're saying is, okay, if I make ask you to make a wellness check on a family member, it shouldn't be a police with a gun that goes to do that.
Right.
It should be a wellness check officer that'll go and see if everything is okay and report everything is fine. But like I was watching something today on a lot of the killings that have been happening throughout the country have been somebody called because their brother is having a mental problem, a mental issue. And next thing you look, their brother's dead in the street. So I think that the part of defunding the police is to take some of the money that is given to states and counties for the police and have social workers, have mental health workers. Those type of people are the people that need to go out on those type of calls. Now, if it's a dangerous person, somebody is super, super dangerous and they can't be controlled and they're trying to take somebody's life, that's a little different. But if they have mental issues, that's also different. Because you can't just send a cop, like you said, that's going in war mode to try to calm down somebody that's having a mental problem.
Right.
Because at some point, there's going to be some friction, and that cop with that gun is going to feel threatened, or he's going to say he feels threatened, and somebody's going to get hurt.
And yeah, like you said, it's not so much defund the police. It's more like reallocate the funds, because we keep giving the police departments more and more money.
And they're turning into little armies. They
spend it on weaponry. They spend it on armored vehicles and things when they should be spending it on diversification with social workers and things like that, as well as better training. So you're exactly right on that point. Quick, important question. Are you for legalizing marijuana?
Zach, that is definitely a part of my platform. And this is how I see it. You know, I've done a little bit of research on why, because when I was talking to my son about it, and I was like, you know, I said something to him, and he said, "Mommy, no. What you need to do is find out why they legalized it, why they made it illegal."
Mm-hmm.
He said that is going to be the key. So I did the research, and it was basically racist.
Yes.
See, when the Mexicans came over here after the revolution, I mean after the war, they went into different states. I think one was Louisiana, and other one may have been California or something like that. When they came over here, they came with their, you know, their ways of life. The word marijuana is a slang word that the Mexicans created to name the plant that we all know as
cannabis.
You know, right, cannabis. But that was their slang word for it. The A slinger, who was one of the heads of the Drug Enforcement Agency, he had in the 1930s, he said that marijuana made Mexicans act crazy. It made Black men want to have sex with white women. That it made white women want to have sex with Black men, and he wanted it made illegal. Now, in 1970, President Nixon put together the Schaefer Commission. The Schaefer Commission was supposed to look at marijuana and see, you know, rather it was harmful, you know, how addictive it was and things of that nature. And after they did their study, they came back and they told him that there was nothing wrong with marijuana, that they didn't even understand why it had been made illegal, why it had even been put on that list, because marijuana was actually cannabis. And at that time, many Americans had cannabis oil in their medicine cabinets, because it was used for many different things. But the two words is where the separation really came in at, because the slang word marijuana has an ugly connotation to it. Cannabis, when we think about cannabis, we think about healing, things of that nature. But it's the same thing. And basically, that's what the Schaefer Commission told President Nixon, was that they didn't understand why it was even on his list. But he left it there. He never removed it. So at this point, when we look back at the history of marijuana in this country, its laws were basically made as a way to control the Mexicans and the Blacks, because it gave them the right to stop them and search them. And the Mexicans, if they found it on them, they sent them back to their country. So it was a way of, it was basically a racist way of controlling the two races of people that they were not comfortable with.
Yeah, one of Nixon's advisors actually said, we can't make it illegal to be Black or against the war. So we have to enforce, so we're going to put people in prison for smoking marijuana.
Yeah.
And they're going to say that it's specifically hippies and Black people doing it, even though statistically it's an equal amount of everyone who smokes cannabis. But it's discriminatory. And especially now, this is still true because in Spalding County and in Georgia, it is legal to have specific types of cannabis, Delta 8 and Delta 10. You can go to the vape store and buy actual flower that gets you high, that gets you inebriated in the store. But they left Delta 9 illegal specifically so they can still put people in prison, the people they want to put in prison.
Put in prison. Yeah. And that's the funny thing about it, because like this is how I saw it. Back in the 30s and 40s, numbers was a way that minorities were able to take care of their families. When I say numbers, I mean like, you play one number, you play two numbers, you play three numbers. If you hit, you get paid. They put many people in jail for that. Numbers runners and numbers bankers, and my father being one of them. They put them in prison for that. Now, come 40 years later, we have the lottery system, which makes billions and billions of dollars for them. And they took it from a people, made it illegal for them, and turned it around and made it legal for themselves and made boonkoons money off of it. It's the same thing that's happening with marijuana.
Yep.
Because what they did was the war on drugs, and they put our sons, our fathers, our brothers under the jail. Now you look, and it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and there's still people in jail right now for marijuana. And I also heard that what's happening in our state is a lot of big corporations are coming into the state, buying up big plots of land, planning on growing marijuana here in the state, that they still putting people in jail.
And they want it to be an exclusive club. Like the lottery system you brought up is a big part of it. Is you had growers already that were making money. Small growers to large growers, but it was illegal. And now that they're legalizing it, they're making it hard and very, very regulated to get a license to get into the industry, so that people who are already rich and mostly white are getting into the industry and making millions and billions of dollars, whereas small growers have no option. They can't get in.
To the curb. They've been kicked to the curb.
Yes.
And now the big money is coming in, and they're saying, okay, so I understood that in a couple of states that have made marijuana legal, they can also grow it, and they have been giving people licenses, but in order to get it up and running, you're talking about a couple of $1 million. So if I have a license, but I don't have a couple of $1 million, what good is that license doing me?
Nothing.
So what a lot of people are winding up doing, Zach, is they're selling the licenses to these larger corporations because they can't afford to do what it takes to be able to start the business.
That's exactly right. And so that's why I'm totally for legalization, but also I believe in smart legalization. We need to make sure we do it in a way that's inclusive and is fair.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't know how that's going to work, because I can always tell you, if they have their way, we're going to be at the bottom of the barrel. And when I say that, I mean these big corporations with all these millions of dollars, they're going to come in, they're going to buy up all these plots of land, and they're going to grow marijuana, right? Maybe a couple of miles away from somewhere where they're arresting somebody right now for having some in their pocket. Like you can ride 45 minutes down the road and you can have marijuana. I'm talking about inside of Atlanta, and you can smoke it, but you cross the street with the same thing that you had on the other side of the street, and you're going to jail.
Yep. Makes no
How
sense.
much sense does that make? None.
unless you're
It
looking
says
at
that
it.
there is a target. There's a
Right.
target.
The only way it makes sense is if you want to discriminate against people for different reasons. That's the only way it makes sense, and that's why they do it.
Yes, and we have to do something about that. I mean, because I'm definitely for legalization, for medicinal, for recreational and cultivation. Um, I do believe that anyone who has been arrested for marijuana with a non-violent charge, that they should have it expunged from their records, and they should be amongst the first to get licenses. And then there should be programs put in place to assist them to build these businesses, because just giving them a license is not making any difference if they can't afford to build the business from there.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm all for it. I definitely am. And would love to see, because not only that, Zach, but look at because I was doing some research on Colorado, and the licensing and all of that stuff has brought them plenty of money as far as the state is concerned. And I think that with our state always crying about they don't have enough money to make better schools, they don't have enough money for this, and they don't have enough money for that. Well, once you legalize it and the industry grows within the state, then we could take that money, help to better communities, help to better the schools, and help to better the medical facilities within these communities. You're always talking about y'all ain't got no money. Well, this is a way to make some money and put it back into the community.
Yep. And I would trust that any policy positions like this, you're going to listen to experts, you're going to ask them. And that's something that I don't think your opponent does. They listen to the money.
Yeah, special interest. That's all it's about. He's entrenched. When I say he's entrenched, I was looking at some of the legislation he sponsored, some of the stuff that he signed on to, just his whole, and it's nothing but special interests. He, like when the person called me and said, what is he doing down? Why is he signing on the Buckhead, annexing from Atlanta when he got stuff to do here in Spalding? So we need someone in those seats that are going to make the people their priority and not the special interests.
Yep. So Pingke Dubignon, tell them your website and how they can support your campaign.
Well, my website is www.pingke, Pingke, at pingeforgeorgia.com. And I'm sure you mean you don't have none of my flyers or nothing yet, Zach?
Not yet. You got to tell Austin to get me some of that stuff.
Yeah, we did get the yard signs today too. So during the week, next week, you call me, or this weekend, let me know where you're gonna be at, or you can come by the house and pick up a couple.
All right, definitely will. Thanks for coming on the pod. It was great talking to you.
Oh, you know how I feel about you, Zach. I campaigned for you.
And I really appreciate it. A lot of this stuff I was looking to do in the city of Griffin government.
That's all right, because you're going to run again.
Yeah.
And you're going to win. And you're going to win.
Mm-hmm.
Love you, Zach.
All right, love you too. Thank you for watching the show. Like, subscribe, tell me what you thought in the comments. And if you want to support the show, support me on Patreon, patreon.com/Xenerock. $5 a month can get you on my Discord server. Thank you for watching and have a great rest of your day.